Hi, everyone, and welcome to Vikings Now, your immediate reaction to the action. And the Vikings now are 0-3. Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Rich. Ahmad Hicks joins us, Pierre Noujaim. And well, boys, we are sitting in a spot nobody envisioned when the schedule came out.
Maybe some.
I don't know. I mean, the Tampa game and this one looked like winnable games when you looked at it on paper. Week 2, no, you weren't too encouraged about going into Philadelphia, a night game, their season opener, and the history that the Vikings have had going into Philly. But this one today, another one where you can say the mirror beat them because they can look at themselves and say, yeah, this is on us.
I think after 3 weeks of the season, the Vikings can look in the mirror and say no one has beaten them but themselves. It's the same thing that Justin Jefferson said following the game. He's like, we continue to shoot ourselves in the foot. We continue to beat ourselves. And I'm just saying, I don't think anyone outside of Philadelphia has come in and just beaten them and just been like, even Philadelphia for that matter, where you could just say, man, it's a lopsided game. You know, they shouldn't have won that game. I think the Vikings should be 3-0, but they're 0-3 because they can't take care of the football and they can't execute and they can't do little things right. It's like relationships, Pierre. You know, successful relationships only last when you do the little things right, and they are not doing that right now.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know anything about that. What I do know is, yeah, I would agree that the Vikings are beating themselves at in a lot of situational football, like we saw today, the last play of the game, instead of clocking the ball, when you know you have no timeouts, to give yourself at least another play. They could have possibly had 3 plays if they would have clocked the ball at the end of the game there. But situational football is not working. Pass defense doesn't look very good either. I mean, Keenan Allen had a record day today. 18 catches for Keenan Allen. That's a franchise record for the LA Chargers. I don't even know why I call them the LA Chargers. They'll always be San Diego to me, America's finest city. So
215 yards.
I just don't think I'm going to say the same thing I said last week. I grossly overestimated where I thought this team would be by this point of the season. I thought this team would still be a team that would compete for the division. I just don't think this team is any good. I don't think this team is any good. I don't really see any reason for optimism. I don't think the season is over by like a lot of people think it is already. I don't think the season is over by any means, especially with the division that you're playing in. But I just don't think this team is any good.
I think if there's any optimism to find, it's the NFC North. And the fact that Justin Fields and the Bears look horrendous. Jordan Love, I mean, the Packers, they're up and down, a little inconsistent.
Barely escaped today.
The Lions, they got out. They beat Atlanta, but, they still don't look amazing on paper and on television and on film. So, I mean, there's optimism there, but if you're looking at the Vikings team and you're just assessing them based on what we saw with our own 2 eyes or 6 eyes in this case, I don't have a lot of optimism for this team.
No, because I look at the defense. I think that's where the red flag is. Brian Flores, everybody was like, oh, this is crazy. They blitzed 51% of the time in the first 2 weeks of the season.
Only got home 5% of the time.
Right. And I'm saying you can use all the smoke and mirrors, but these are NFL teams. They're NFL coaches you're going against. They know all these tricks. Yes, you could maybe confuse them once in a while with a look or confuse an opposing quarterback, but you have to put results on the table. And the run defense coming into this week, they were the worst in the NFL after Philadelphia just ran all day. Now, after the Chargers decided, well, you know what, let's go to the air, the Vikings now have the worst pass defense in the entire National Football League. So I don't know what you do about that. You can have the superstar numbers with Jefferson and Cousins. We could debate whether he's a big-time quarterback or not, but he's putting up big-time numbers. Yet this defense is not any better than a year ago.
I want to hear Pierre go first.
Well, I've been all day long today. I know how fans think, and they want somebody to point the finger at, and that's just the nature of the way fans think and what they how they try to cope with their team being at an 0-3 deficit. And if I had to get inside the mind of a Vikings fan, which is one of the last places I would want to be,
especially today.
Yeah, and I have always maintained whenever there is a new regime in town, you have to give them 3 full years, I think, to fairly evaluate the process. I'm not giving a complete grade to the new regime just yet because I still don't think it's fair. But in my opinion, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah has a lot to answer for. A lot to answer for. And if we're gonna hang an L on this team already, I think he has to be the man to wear it, because the interior of the offensive line continues to be a mess. You decide not to bring back Dalvin Cook and go cheap at the running back position. How's that working out for you? You've invested high-quality draft picks in Lewis Cine, Andrew Booth Jr., Mekhi Blackman, Jay Ward. You've tried to address the secondary as best you can, and the secondary is not getting the job done. These are still young players with a lot of road ahead of them. Their grades are not complete in my book by any means. But the results right now, from what I've seen in terms of, again, the Josh Oliver signing, to me, the guy is a great blocking force of a tight end. He caught a touchdown pass today. Yeah, okay, fine. I'm not taking anything away from him. The allocation of funds to Josh Oliver made no sense to me whatsoever in the offseason.
Ding, ding, ding.
And so tell me why I should be excited about the road ahead that Kwesi has planned for this team when the return on investment doesn't seem to be worth it, or it's misallocated, a la Josh Oliver, in my opinion. So by the time year 2 ends, I don't know where the Vikings are going to be, but you better believe I'm going to be paying attention to what Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah does in the offseason, because right now it's not getting it done.
No, it's not getting it done, and that's just putting it mildly, Everyone knew this past offseason, I feel like we said this in the trailer, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, but everyone knew heading into the offseason the offensive line was a problem. Kirk Cousins was one of the most sacked quarterbacks last year.
Yes.
And as Pierre said, I don't understand. Well, look, I can kind of get it. Like, all right, Josh Oliver, he's, an extension of the left or right tackle. He's really physical. He can block. All right, cool. But, what about the interior? What about the center, the two guards? I get we brought Dalton Reisner in.
You know what Oliver is in my mind? He's an accessory. It's like you have a 98 Saturn and you put rims on it. It doesn't really get the job done. You need an engine. You need something inside to get it done.
I think what that signing was, and speaking to one Vikings player kind of off the record, their idea was we're going to mix in more outside zones this year. They want to run to the outside because they knew the interior of the offensive line was kind of weak. They knew that if an injury happened, like a Garrett Bradbury in game 1, it was going to be tough sledding for this offensive line.
Yeah, but he had his problems anyway.
I understand that, but I think that's why they
pick him up his 5th-year option.
Yeah.
They knew that, he's kind of shaky, but they didn't find anything else out there. So they hey, come on back.
I wouldn't say you can't find anything else out
well,
there.
I mean, they didn't see anything that they liked.
That's part of what Pierre just said. That's on Kwesi and his offseason signing, Garrett Bradbury to 3 years, $18 million, and he was bottom 16 in the league in centers last year. But like I said, I think the only reason they brought in Josh Oliver was to kind of extend that offensive line, but it's not worked. And so that's why they went and got Dalton Reisner, because they know they needed some help right away. Unfortunately, Dalton couldn't play this week. He couldn't grasp the playbook in that short of a time period. But I do think that he will help them moving forward.
He seems like
he'll be a tremendous fit.
Seems like he should have been here in training camp.
Yeah,
when he was here the first time.
When he was invited the first time, yeah.
But as he said, he was still recovering from an injury that he sustained this offseason, and so the Vikings
weren't comfortable. Why he was out
there. The Vikings weren't comfortable signing him. He also thought he was worth a significant amount of money, and other teams thought he was down here. So he kind of had to wait. And, with the injuries to the Vikings offensive line, the writing was on the wall. It's match made in heaven. Like, all right, guys, let's pull the trigger. Let's get this done now. So, as you said, 3 weeks too late. But I think it's also a good sign of what's to come for this offensive line.
I'm laughing because Jim is the owner of a 98 Saturn. I have yet to see new rims on that thing. But
if he does, I'm going to fall out.
That'll be the day.
Yep.
That'll be the day.
We'll see it.
One thing in terms of
and it won't increase the value.
No, well,
no, it won't.
I've driven in that car with you before. I know what that car is capable of. The extension of what we were talking about just a moment ago too, with the running back position. Listen, Alexander Mattison. I don't know what to do with Alexander Mattison at this point, because today he fumbled the ball twice and got saved twice. He was saved in a game last week against Philadelphia as well. If any of you watching have ever seen the movie Friday Night Lights, you know Don Billingsley, their running back, had a hard time holding on to the ball, so much so that his own father woke up in the middle of the night in a drunken stupor to tape his hands with duct tape just so he can hold on to the ball. And I am on the doorstep of doing that with Alexander Mattison at this point.
The drunken stupor or the duct tape?
Well, we'll leave at least the duct tape part. We'll go with that for right now. But at the same time, too, you know, you bring in Cam Akers, and this is another thing that I don't buy with this franchise. All week long, you hear quotes from the coaching staff saying, this doesn't change anything with Alexander Mattison. Oh, really? It doesn't? Why wouldn't it? You brought in another running back, so why wouldn't his role be any different? You're trying to tell me that you just brought in Cam Akers just for the sake of bringing in Cam Akers and Alexander Mattison's role is not going to change? I like Alexander Mattison a lot. I think he's got so much talent. I don't know what has happened to him in these first 3 games. I don't know if the pressure of being RB1 is too much for him. I don't know if he's just not seeing the field right. I don't know if the interior of the line is just not opening lanes for him. But he's having a hard time holding on to the ball. We're going to get a chance to see what Cam Akers can do next week. You better believe that. Because even though it doesn't go down in the book as 2 lost fumbles, he fumbled the ball twice today. Again.
He did.
Again.
He did. And when you look at the stats, 20 carries, 93 yards. So games 1 and 2, I think he had, 18, 19 carries for 63 yards.
I think he had a combined 68 or 69 yards through 2
games. It was like under 70
that
yards.
was the whole offense. Rushing the ball was 69 yards total.
So I think my thing with Mattison, there's 2 things. All right. One, the offensive line is really bad, had been really bad, and it's really hard for a running back to flourish in this National Football League when you don't have a good offensive line.
Just to add to your case, the Vikings running backs were hit the soonest after getting the handoff.
And every time you watch a game, everybody at home knows what we're talking about. It's hard to make a man miss in the backfield as soon as you get the football.
He's standing next to you.
And then you got to go make 10 other guys miss. So, look, part of that is on the offensive line. The other part is on Mattison because, as Pierre alluded to, you got to be able to find the holes. You got to be able to hit the holes, and you got to be able to break free eventually. Today, we saw flashes of that, but I want to nitpick Alexander Mattison. We're talking about one of those final 2 drives that the Vikings had within their own 10-yard line with the chance to score. I think they were on the 2-yard line. Mattison got the ball, and he leaves his feet for whatever reason, leans forward, and he falls on the 1. And it's like, bro, you're an NFL running back. Bow up. You run hard at the goal line. That's what you said before. When you get around the goal line, you smell blood. That's what he said before. And in that moment, you wanted him to smell blood. You wanted him to get into the paint, go celebrate with his teammates. But he leaves his feet. He falls just short, and then the Vikings end up turning the ball over. You have to think, if they got a running back like Dalvin Cook or somebody else, he may be able to get in there. So I'm not knocking Mattison, but he hasn't performed. He hasn't lived up to the expectations, and now it's only right that the Vikings give Cam Akers a shot because this is a guy who has a lot of skill, a lot more speed, a lot of burst, but he also was a guy who couldn't piece it all together with the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think he's all that – when it comes to from a talent perspective, I don't think there's a lot of drop-off between one and the other.
Right.
So that's the thing. Even though Cam Akers is going to see some time, in all likelihood, next week against Carolina, how much difference is it going to make? That I don't really know the answer to just yet because I don't know if Cam Akers – and then this is the other thing, too. Cam Akers, when Kevin O'Connell was in L.A. with Cam Akers, I mean, Cam Akers had, flashes, looked good, but we've seen how the Sean McVay coaching tree treats – running backs.
Yes.
1 week, you're the talk of the town. The next week, you're getting traded.
Outside of Todd Gurley, I have not seen any running back in any of McVay's offenses or the guys who were under his coaching tree use a running back like they did Gurley back in the day.
Right. So why should I have any confidence that Cam Akers is going to step in and do any better? I know that he's probably going to be on the active roster come next week. I don't see why he wouldn't be on the active roster come next week. But
you're right. It's the same offense. He'll be out there. I mean, this says a lot about Coach O'Connell because we blame a lot about the running backs. Everyone wants to point a finger at the running game. But the fact is, Kirk is averaging over like 35, 40 pass attempts in the first 3 games. That's 50 a ton.
That's a total today.
That's a ton of passing attempts when you don't have an offensive line to protect your quarterback. So I think Kevin O'Connell's play calling was also horrendous when you talk about the game versus the Chargers, especially that first possession. in the fourth quarter with the chance to win, where they end up turning over on downs. I think one of the first plays when you had the ball on the 1 yard line or just inside the 1 yard line, the no-brainer there, quarterback sneak, go get the points. Vikings go up 3. Everybody's happy. But instead, we turn it around with the bad offensive line, interior, and we turn it around and hand it off to Alexander Madison, who gets stuffed for a 3-yard loss. And now it's like, all right, negative plays here to begin the drive.
Right, they just saw the Eagles do the quarterback sneak to perfection, get everybody in there, and just carry them over the line.
It's the head coach Kevin O'Connell kind of said after the game, he made an excuse about it. I'll be blunt. He made an excuse. He's like, look, we kind of saved that play if it's fourth down, and the quarterback can just kind of reach it over the pylon. And we love the play call that we had. We believed it. And then we asked Kirk, like, hey, why didn't you just go quarterback sneak it? And he said, look, if you watched that Netflix documentary last year, quarterback, you saw I called my own quarterback sneak in Buffalo, and I didn't get it. He was like, yeah. He's like, so that, there's consequences when you call your own play and you don't succeed. So he said he didn't want to fall victim to, or in that habit of calling his own number. He wanted to do what Kevin O'Connell called, which was a run play to Madison, resulted in, loss of yards. Then they turned the ball over on that drive.
Yeah, and then, with Cousins and the end-of-game clock management, Zimmer always got ripped for his clock management and how he ran the offense late in games and unaware of where the time was burning away. Well, we saw a situation of that today. It went from 41 seconds down to 12 before they were able to get that snap off on 1st and goal, which means, as everybody can say, you don't like what you see, just throw it into the ground and reset. Yeah. But I don't know if O'Connell thought, well, he saw personnel that the Chargers had on the field, and so they thought they could take advantage of that.
No, we're not even going to start the excuses or hypotheticals. What they said after the game was miscommunication. He was trying to signal a play into Kirk Cousins. I guess the crowd noise was too loud. There was some
you could see him on TV.
He's like, crowd noise was too loud. They said that his intercom was, I guess, going in and out. Kirk said, though, eventually, when it was all said and done, once they finally got to the line of scrimmage, he ran the play that Kevin O'Connell would have called. So we can make all the excuses we want about time management and whatnot, but he still called that play. Kirk probably still would have made that throw. Who knows? And the game probably, I won't say would have came out that way, but there's a chance that it would have ended that way. But you would like to see NFL players and NFL coaches not waste 25 seconds when you're down and you need to score. And like you said, it's first down. So another tough night for them.
I'm shaking my head because it does, like, I know that we heard all along, like Ahmad was saying, miscommunication, they couldn't hear the call, and that doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. You know what that proves to me? That proves to me you had a complete lack of awareness of the situation, because you shouldn't even be listening for a play at that point. You're under a minute to go with no timeouts left. You just got yourself a first down inside the 5. Run up to the line and spike the ball immediately. You run this drill in practice constantly. Why on earth would you let the clock run at any point? Why are you even looking at the sideline or trying to listen for a play? Be aware of the situation. That showed a complete lack of awareness in the situation. That's what it showed me. I don't care about miscommunication. That's all irrelevant at this point, because that just tries to pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. That's what it is. Because we absolutely blew the situation and didn't recognize that we had under a minute to go. The clock is running. We have no timeouts. You forgot about the situation.
Right. It wasn't fourth down. No. I mean, it wasn't like you had to run this play. This was our only opportunity.
Right.
You had multiple opportunities to go if you clocked it at 39 seconds.
Correct. Exactly right. You clock it at around 38, 39 seconds. That gives you chances for 3 plays. No doubt about it. Because you're not going to run the ball. Lord knows you're not going to run the ball. So you're going to throw it on 3 consecutive tries. And get yourself settled. Get yourself settled. Reset. Give yourself 40 extra seconds on the play clock to then maybe hear the play call and not be in a frantic and
fire drill.
Pace. Yeah, it just the end of the game execution there just made no sense to me, and it annoys me even further because Brandon Staley, the head coach of the LA Chargers, absolutely served it to you on a silver platter.
Yes.
Brandon Staley should be lambasted for that decision to go for it on 4th and 1 from his own 24.
A terrible play call, too.
Absolutely ludicrous decision for Brandon Staley, and he's going to get away with it.
Yeah,
he's going to get away with it.
Not gonna. He did get away with it.
That's what I thought it was.
He did get
I
away
thought
with
it was
yeah.
Dan Campbell over there. It's like, because a year ago,
Yes,
Detroit did
Lions
that,
game, yes.
and that bit
Cost
them in the butt, and the
Yeah.
Vikings came back to win.
Good memory,
And they had it right there again.
Yeah.
And this year, it doesn't go their way.
No.
Last year, touchdown, and they walk away with a win, and everybody's like, oh, this is a great team.
That's right.
11-0 in one-score games last year, including the Giants' playoff loss. The Vikings are now 0-4 in one-score games since starting 11-0 last year. And I want to go back to what Pierre said, because a lot of people may not want to point the finger at Kirk Cousins because you look at his numbers and it's like, oh, man, he's doing great, 32 of 50, 367, 3 touchdowns. But can we talk about him being flustered in one of those final 2 drives and missing a wide-open KJ Osborne that would have put the icing on the cake? Everybody goes home happy.
Well, the one that floated over and he got a hand on it.
If you're Kirk Cousins, you're a guy who has to face all that criticism all year long about not being a good quarterback, not being elite, not having that it factor. In moments like that, you got to thrive, man. You got to make that throw. He owned up to it after the game, which he always will. He's a humble quarterback. He's never going to throw his team or coaches under the bus like a guy in Chicago that we know of. But this guy, he was a man of his word. He said, I got to make that throw, got to put it on KJ. That's one that I love to have back. But I think that's something that we hear from Cousins and this team all too often, even dating back to last year. Oh, I would love to have that back. Oh, we could just do this. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. You guys are 0-3 now because of that. And it's really hard to dig yourselves out of this hole. Kevin O'Connell said something. He's been on a team that started 0-3 and they went on to win a world championship. I don't know how he's getting those guys in that locker room to believe that they can go on to go win a world championship after these first 3 weeks. But T.J. Hockenson said it, and he said they just need to get back to the drawing board. So optimism is high, in the Vikings organization, but not here. We're a little blunt, I think, on Vikings Now.
All right, so you got Carolina next week. Obviously,
Adam Thielen revenge game.
There you go. There you go. I mean, they can get one there, hopefully. So there's a bit of a pulse.
No, there's not, because then you got Kansas City and then San Francisco 2 weeks after that. The Vikings are going to be like 2-5 or 1-6 by week 8. I hate to break it to you guys. This is not a good year. This is not a good football team.
Well, just strictly looking ahead to Carolina, obviously it is a game on paper that you feel that the Vikings should win. We've already been here before back in week 1 against Tampa Bay. That was a game we all looked at and we chalked up automatically as a Vikings win.
So they called a must win, and you guys said, that'll be fine. They can make it up elsewhere on the schedule.
I never once said any of that at all. No, liar. I didn't
re-queue it. They're still posted on our website. Back it up. You can hear I call it a must-win.
Yeah,
and
I
you're like,
said it's not. Week 1 is not a must-win week.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah,
it's not a must-win week.
And where are we sitting right now?
There's no such thing as a must-win game unless you're trying to get in the playoffs or you're in the playoffs. That's a must-win game.
Okay.
There's no such thing. Anyway, as we go on to Carolina, it's a game where you feel pretty good about. You don't know if Young is going to be back at quarterback. He missed the game this week. Andy Dalton perhaps could be starting that game at quarterback next week for Carolina. So, yeah, I think that's a game I would pick if I'm picking who's going to win that game. I think I would pick the Vikings to win that game.
They better.
But, yeah, they better, because if they don't, they're 0-4. Now
Tank for Caleb Williams is
now
on.
Now you're just talking fire sale. And then you get into the conversation of whether or not you should trade Kirk Cousins if anybody wants it. So
don't open a Pandora's box, Pierre.
So we got plenty of weeks to talk about that.
Yeah, we do.
Halloween is the deadline.
Yeah, you can't take anything. I mean, you're not good enough to look ahead on the schedule and say to yourself, oh, we're going to beat that team. Oh, we're good enough to beat this team. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. So you can't take any game for granted at this point.
All right. So what is priority 1?
Stop turning the football over. Stop turning the football over. Kevin O'Connell said they bought everything known to mankind last week to help them out. Well, they need to order everything off Amazon Prime, maybe an extra offensive lineman, because whatever they ordered last week certainly didn't help, especially with T.J. Hockenson fumbling early in the game.
Yeah. Well, all right. So that's what they tried to fix this week. But what do you go after? What's more distressing to you? The offensive line play, so you can put in Reisner. That may help somewhat. Mm-hmm. Do you look at this defense? Where do you focus the defensive deficiencies? The run defense or the cornerbacks and the passing game? Because both now they've been exposed 2 different ways in 2 separate weeks. So you're O'Connell, you're sitting with your staff. Okay, boys, if we can at least fix one thing here, what is it?
I think you have to look at the pass situation. I mean, these young corners have to grow up in a hurry. Brian Flores is going to have to try to figure out a way to put these guys in a position. Caleb Evans had an interception today. It went right through his hands. It bounced off his hands. It goes through the hands of Josh Palmer, which turned out to be the game-winning touchdown. Guys are in I shouldn't even say guys are in position to make plays. Sometimes they take themselves out of positions, to make plays with the young corners and not taking the right angle, not making the right reads. But again, this all comes back to, for me, Kwesi and his decision of who to bring in on defense. What's Marcus Davenport doing these days?
Oh, he's just, collecting checks and not doing much.
What's he doing these days?
Trying to rest up his ankle.
So it's like.
That got hurt on a Friday.
What?
In a walkthrough.
I mean, in the secondary is where I still have my concern, especially on the outside. Your safety, I feel good about your safeties. I like your safeties. But on the corners, it's getting harder and harder to justify some of these guys being out there. It really is. I mean, Keenan Allen caught 18 passes today. Mike Williams was on his way to probably another big day as well before he got hurt and left the game today. So in the secondary, that's where that's on a corner, I should say specifically. Corner is where my concern lies.
I'm going to defend the cornerbacks just a little bit because I used to play that position. And as we used to always say, it's really hard to cover somebody for 3 to 4 seconds, especially in the National Football League, without being able to touch them.
Yes, correct. And I
he just jumped to life.
I fully agree with you on that. And that's the other issue in this league. You can't play defense in this league because
you can't touch them.
No.
You got to run just as fast as these guys.
Yeah.
For 5 yards, you get to put your hand on them. But after that,
and you have to guess where they're going.
And you have to mirror them. And you don't know where the play's going, but they do. And then the thing that we used to always say as a former defensive back, I can't guard forever, man. Y'all got to get home eventually. Like, somebody got to go get a sack and put some pressure on the quarterback. So I think the defensive line is where they need to start. Getting Davenport back, I mean, that is a must. If you need to put him on the IR so he's good to go. I don't want any more, he's on his way back. It's short term. And then, setback. Now he's done for another 3 weeks. Put him on the IR. Give him 3 to 4 weeks. Rest that ankle up so he's good to go full speed. And then you got to bring in somebody else in the middle because Harrison Phillips, Kyrus Tonga, Ja'Kalen Roy, like, these guys are not it in the middle right now.
This is why you let Dalvin Tomlinson walk away.
They couldn't afford him.
Zadarius Smith, priority. It's
sure.
Josh Oliver.
For sure.
I mean, those are the decisions you made. You paid Hawkinson. He's now one of the highest
everybody
paid
on
tight
offense.
end.
Everybody on offense is getting paid. Bradbury, Jefferson's money is coming. Cousins' money may come. Madison got his bag. Josh Oliver got his bag. You look at all the spending, you're like, defense wins championships, Kwesi.
Right, and they used their number 1 pick on an offensive player, Jordan Addison.
Needless to say, Vikings fans, they're going to go all defense in 2024. The writing's on the wall right now. They're going to go all defensive draft picks. So I think we're not focusing on the draft right now. As every player in that locker room said, there's a lot of ball left to be played this season, but they don't start getting wins unless they stop turning the ball over. And through 3 weeks, they haven't been able to do that, and who knows if they will be able to.
They're number 1 in one category.
Turnovers.
Exactly. Any final thoughts, Mr. Noujaim, you'd like to fire out there that we've not teed you up on yet?
No, I just think, like Ahmad brought it up, after Carolina, you look at the schedule and you see Kansas City and San Francisco looming, and it is really, really hard to find a reason why this team will not be, at best, 1-5 through the first 6 weeks. That's what's really disconcerting here with this football team. At 1-5, it's not impossible. It's not impossible. However, I just don't see how you come back from that. I don't see it.
No, we've been reading the 0-3 start stats all week.
Yep.
99 teams, only 1 has made it. I can't imagine the odds are much better if you're 1-5 after 6 weeks.
There was one year where Marty Schottenheimer, I believe he was coaching Washington, if I'm not mistaken, started 0-5 and then won 5 straight games to get back into the mix. So, and that was in a 16 game season. So it's not impossible, but given the state of what we've seen, especially like Jim said, defensively, you have to correct things in a hurry. And I just don't think there is enough time and teachable moments within a season to get yourself that right that quickly. Mm-hmm. That's the problem.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, you could go back to the offseason where, like you said, they didn't address the defensive line. They didn't come up with upgrades there. They let Patrick Peterson walk away. He claimed he wanted to stay here, and who knows if he would have helped, but he certainly can help teach young guys.
He was not going to help this team.
No,
he was
he
getting
doesn't have this.
smoked in the playoff game on crossing routes. His speed is gone. He is just a veteran who, like you said, would better serve these players as a coach and not a high-priced player. Sorry, Pat P, love you, Hall of Fame player, but you were not it last year for the Minnesota Vikings, and you are not their future. That's why you're not here. Minnesota Vikings fans, buckle up your seatbelts. We're in for a long ride this year, a bumpy one.
All right, that'll do it. Stay with Fox 9. Ahmad, where could people find all this if they've stumbled across this on YouTube or if they're listening to this as a podcast?
YouTube.
We're available in multiple locations.
YouTube, fox9.com, Fox9 YouTube page, and also on Spotify and Apple where you get all your podcasts.
Or just follow Pierre on X, right?
Please do so. Yes, at the Nuge Fox 9. You can find me there anywhere. Tweet me anytime, or not tweet me. What does it say? X me?
X me.
That sounds weird.
That sounds very weird. So, don't say that again, Pierre. Don't. Nobody X Pierre.
Whatever. I look forward. I look forward to everybody's critiques and criticisms all the time.
Like, follow, subscribe. We'll be back for next week. That's for sure.